All right, welcome to the City of Bay St. Louis City Council meeting, July 16th, 2024. Got the wrong date here. Got me confused. We'll start with the invocation and the pledge. Reverend Reed.
Chair.
Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Now, Father, as we stand today in the center of our city, Father, we're asking, oh God, just to you would continue to grant us the wisdom and the knowledge and the understanding that we need. And we're so grateful today for all that you've done for our city and for our citizenry. And Father, we just ask that you would continue to just be the blessing that you've been. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, good afternoon. Got something wrong here. Get back to my... First on the agenda is Mayor Favre's proclamation for Mr. Harold Weber for 10 years service on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Said it seemed like a lifetime. Said I don't know if he was on there longer or married longer.
Harold, we want to thank you for everything for your 10 years. A lot of unforgiving gratefulness there and everything, and dedicated that entire time now. And this time I'd like to do a proclamation. We are here, whereas we are here today to express our appreciation to Harold Weber and honor him for distinguished 10-year contribution to the city of Bay St. Louis. And whereas Harold, through his work and committed commissioner, has displayed outstanding service to the city of Bay St. Louis and its citizens. And whereas the city of Bay St. Louis commends Harold for his dedication to the Planning and Zoning Commission, along with its devoted services to the citizens of Bay St. Louis. Now therefore, I, Michael J. Paul, city of Bay St. Louis, along with the city council, do hereby want to express our sincere appreciation to Harold Weber for his loyalty to the city of Bay St. Louis, and wish him much happiness as he begins a new chapter in his life.
I hope in some small way I was able to improve the city. And I've been living here for 15 years, come to Bay St. Louis all my life as a child. And I just hope that my concert advanced our city a little bit. I appreciate it.
You still have an opening.
You've been off a whole month now.
I told him earlier, I said, I really didn't want to quit, but it's like, it's really time. I'm going to be 80 in a few months. So,
Yeah.
It's time to pass the torch.
Appreciate you, Mr. Harold. Wait for Buddy. Thank you.
We ain't hugging you. You ain't shaved.
Oh, little lady.
Yes, sir.
I realize that I've been through 1, 2, and 3 leaders for planning and zoning, so.
Appreciate everything. It was a pleasure working with you.
And probably a 4, so.
Yep, thank you.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harold. Thank you for your service.
All right, next guest, Mignon Bouchon, Airbnbs. Come up and identify yourself for the record and your address, please. Identify yourself for the record and your address, please.
232 Leonard Avenue.
Okay.
Good evening and thank you for your service to our city. My name's Mignon Forstall Bouchon. My family and I have owned property in Bay St. Louis since the 60s. I spent the night on the roof during Camille in 1969. I've been a resident of Hancock County most of my life. In fact, I graduated from OLA in 1976. My home is currently under construction on Leonard Avenue. I've waited for years to build my retirement home, and the time is almost here for me to move in. Last Monday, July 8th, the grounds crew installed my sod and watered it down significantly, as it is practice for newly laid sod. The next day, July 9th, I received a call from the workers at my home that a young man just drove his golf cart through the newly installed and very wet sod, creating damage and deep ruts on my lawn. The workers stated that the young man driving the cart with 3 others were laughing and talking loudly as if this was a normal thing to do, and clearly were not remorseful. The workers yelled for them to get off the wet grass, and they drove away after making another circle in my yard because they couldn't go through the ditch. I left my job in Gulfport and got to my property as soon as I could, around 12:45 p.m. I called the Bay St. Louis police and made a police report. The worker that witnessed the incident also gave the police a statement. As it turned out, the young man and others were renting an Airbnb next to my property at Vacation 228 Leonard Avenue. The officer called me later that afternoon after speaking with the young man and stated that he wished to apologize and was sorry. When I arrived at my property that evening, approximately 5:40 p.m., I walked over to the Airbnb because the renters were outside. I asked to speak to the young man, Kushan, and his mother came over to me. She was belligerent and stated that I would have to sue her to get it fixed. She used profanity, threatened me with a voodoo curse because she was a voodoo queen. And her 8-year-old daughter proceeded to yell at me and said that I was going to die because her mother was a voodoo queen. I felt threatened and unsafe in my own neighborhood on my own property. There were 10 of them and me. A neighborhood I chose because it's zoned to be a single-family home neighborhood, and I have looked forward to living there for many years. I'm disappointed and saddened by what the Airbnb renters are doing to our local neighborhoods. There is no accountability as to what can be done. There's no way of knowing who is renting these properties. There should be more restrictions in place that we may all enjoy and feel safe in our beautiful city of Bay St. Louis. At the end of the day, the property owner of the Airbnb did the responsible thing and had my lawn restored at his expense, which was estimated to be over $500. I understand that visitors are great for our economy, but should it be at the expense of locals who have had generations of family enjoying Bay St. Louis? My family, my children, my grandchildren would love to continue to enjoy and make memories in our town without living in fear. I have not been to my property for days until these renters left because they had me that shook up. I did call 911 again when the lady was threatening me. Thank you for letting me speak this evening, and please call me on any time if I can help with a solution.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So we have kickstarted a VRBO Airbnb ordinance since 2013. Unfortunately, we've never adopted one. Finally, a comprehensive plan. People said we need one, so I guess we'll adopt one now.
We
Yes.
hope
So,
to have
were the
one at
police
the next-
called?
We hope to have one first meeting in August.
Okay.
And what was the response?
Right. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. So hopefully we can get something in place at least to try to get some semblance of, not control, but accountability and some rules and regulations around them, quite honestly. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It's single family, yeah. It is a big ball of wax, quite honestly. I mean, if you watch the news, New Orleans is in the middle of their vacation rental ordinance. They can limit it, we can't. Other cities can limit it, we can't. It's just it's a huge mess, quite
Well,
honestly.
I kind
But we
of
need to
disagree on some things,
Start,
is that if there is a problem, there's a disturbance going on, the police have a duty, an obligation, and the enforcement ability to take care of that. Chief, would you like to talk about this? on?
We good.
Okay, thanks.
Unfortunate society, you know, that's unfortunately, and I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but yes, we are looking at doing, you know, getting the VRBO ordinance in place to try to get some type of control over it. We are proliferated with them, but again, we are, like the mayor said, they'd have one to submit to us in August. So we'll workshop it and at least get something on the books and start building it from there. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Minutes approval, motion, did we have any amendments to the agenda? I'm sorry. Any amendments to the agenda? Cruised on by that. Motion to approve minutes, July 2nd, 2024. No changes required.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Salvo.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hoffman. Any discussion? Let's vote to motion.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Next option, motions, plan and zoning motion to follow plan and zoning application approved a 1-foot variance resulting in 7-foot side yard setback by Pamela White located at 346th Street, St. George Street, parcel 149E-0-29-122.000. It's approved 6-0 at plan and zoning. Anyone speak for or against this application? Motion? Need a motion to approve or deny?
Motion to approve.
Motion, Mr. Hoffman,
Second.
second, Mr. Salvo. Any discussion?
Yeah, just of note, I know the administration did mention in the letter that the Bay St. Louis Historic Preservation Commission has already approved the carport.
Thank you. All right, vote to motion.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed 7-0. Next motion to follow plan and zoning recommendation, approve the variance of 3.8 feet resulting in 8.2 foot to the side yard submitted by Thomas Lemire located at 500 South Beach Boulevard, parcel 149P-0-300.002.000. That was approved 6-0 as well by planning and zoning. Anyone here for or against this application? It's a pleasure to council.
I make a motion to follow P and Z recommendation and approve this application.
Motion, Mr. Reed.
Second.
Second, Mr. Salvo. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate, so I think there was a letter submitted that's in our packet, I believe from Ms. Kathleen and Joe Monty, and they, overall, it said they have spoken with the property owner, can support it. I think there were a couple of things that they just want to see, and one pertained to the drip line of the live oak tree. Have we solidified that and gotten that issue resolved?
My
or-
understanding, they following the same footprints that's there now.
Okay, I think it was just an issue that wasn't mapped out on their plat, so they just want to make sure that that's not disturbed.
Okay, make note of that, Caitlin. All right, any more discussion? Vote to motion.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passed 7-0. Motion to follow planning and zoning recommendation, approve the amendment to zoning ordinance allowing a zoning change for parcels 138H-0-46-028.00 through and including parcel 138H-0-46-297.00 Coastal Gables Townhomes from current R1 single family to R1A single family submitted by Ajax LLC located on Chapman Road. This also was approved 6-0 by planning and zoning. Anybody speak for or against this application?
Good afternoon, Eric Brown on behalf of Ajax. Wasn't sure if y'all had any questions or understood what's going on. That's the property out next to the soccer fields out on Chapman Road. It's zoned R1 but had a special use zoning and was envisioned as an RV park, which is why you have 297 parcels that have been vacated, by the way. So now it's back to R1. The issue is, if you've been out there, there's an entrance in a circular road. If you tried to do R1, which requires 100 foot of frontage and a minimum of 12,500, you just can't make it work, right? What we're proposing is changing to R1A, which is 50 foot of frontage as a minimum, 5,000 square foot lots. However, and we would have to come back and resubmit the plat, what we would propose is doing about 40 lots in there, with the result with the average lot size being about 7,500 square feet. So this makes it more economically feasible to do the project.
Yeah, but the way you're approaching this, if we approve this, you can sell the property and get 50-foot lots on it all day long legally, and I don't think that would be a good use of that property.
Well, one, I would say that it's not our intent to sell. There are 50-foot
There's no
lots.
safeguards.
The neighborhood has 50-foot lots, currently, right? And I agree with you. Of course, any platting, et cetera, change the plat would have to come back for approval to zoning and planning and to the city council for approval.
But you're changing the zoning
We are changing the zone.
to.
We're not approving a plat tonight.
Correct.
Yeah, so Gary, just to clarify, so with this, it would change the zoning to R1A, which would allow them the right to come back and ask for lots as small as
50-foot.
50 foot. But in this situation, they actually can't ask for 50-foot lots because the square footage of a 50-foot lot would not meet the square footage requirement of R1A. So they would have to be bigger than 50-foot
The
lots.
frontage
They
would
would
have
have
to
to
be.
have a variance, or they would have to.
But
go
no
to
matter,
60
so no matter,
62-foot lot.
no matter what, this is not the 100 and whatever parcels that it was previously. So the only thing that you would be doing tonight is changing the zoning on the property. But any sort of future subdivision would have to be brought back to this council.
Or planning and zoning first for public input.
Yes.
Well, yeah, you'd have to go through the whole
process,
subdivision
yeah.
process just as if it was anywhere else in the city.
Mr. Brown, so you mentioned the average square feet is about 6,500. So
Well, it's going to be 6,500 to 7,500. It just depends how it lays out. And if y'all got the layout there now currently?
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you look, it works out to being about 40 functional lots. There's a strip across the front of Chapman that'll probably stay public space in there, just because less appealing from a lot standpoint, et cetera. And quite frankly, our goal with this is to work with builders to put in something in the $300,000 to $350,000 range, which is, there's not a lot of that available in Bay St. Louis right now. And so that's kind of the target with all this.
So I think, and so with the limitation here is the lot depth. The depth of them is what, on average, about 60 feet?
79.
Right, so you're looking at,
79,
yeah.
okay.
I think most of them about 79
Yeah.
through there, it looks like.
That's the hard part about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you had about 65 of frontage, you're gonna get about 6,500 square foot a lot to, just depending on where.
Yeah, 65, yeah. You have to probably be around 80-something foot lots to get where you need to be, probably.
I think it's 62, because all you need is 5,000 feet,
Yeah.
I think, for R1A.
Mhm.
So somewhere around 62 feet.
Yeah, he was saying,
that's right.
yeah, 65.
Allow you. What
What's
they-
the elevation on this?
They're gonna have to go up. I mean,
be
it's
elevated.
flood zone. So, you envision raised lots, ability to park underneath, right? I mean, raised homes, ability to park underneath and go that way. And again, this is just a step that we're asking the city council to take. So then in turn, we can go back, get an engineer involved, come back with a formal plat and run it through the process.
It'd be nice to see something go on that property. It's been
Vacant for a long
vacant for,
Vacant for a long
since they
time.
built it. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Nothing's ever come there.
Most been
so-
apartment complexes coming there.
No, I thought they were
No, it was
supposed to be a RV park.
RV park.
Well,
RV park.
it was originally platted for
Townhomes or
Townhomes.
apartment, yeah. And then
it
they
went
got
to
special
RV
use
park,
for
yeah,
RV.
so it's been in the works for years, but yeah, it was
Yeah.
originally platted for townhomes.
And I just ask that all of you remember that when Mr. Jenin purchased this property, he could have actually gone in, they were all individual lots. So he actually could have gone in and built houses on each of these
3 foot.
23 foot, yeah, he could have basically gone in and legally, there's nothing we could have done to do
They were platted.
shotgun style houses, on the plat. And so I think they vacated the plat with the intention of bringing something like this back to you guys so that, because they could have subdivided them off, but it would have ended up really funky. So I think they vacated it in order to make a good faith effort to come back with something that's more suitable for the city.
Cool.
Yes.
And Mayor, I know the administration recommends, there's about 7 items, but recommends denial of the zoning change. But it looks like a couple items would actually lead to believe that would be more of a support of the change. Has there been a change
Well,
in
the
stance
concern
with the
is,
administration?
concern is, they've got great intentions, but if they sell tomorrow by right, they could come in with a 62-foot lot, which would create more than the 40 homes on there. than what they're saying they're gonna put. You know, I think they present like 90-foot frontage somewhere in that neighborhood, and that's great, cause we wanna see it developed as well.
Right.
And that 90, if they was bringing the sketch plat in here to, for approval along with it, showing that 90, we'd be 100% with it, you know? But, you know, it's just that if we approve 1A and 5,000 square foot and 50 foot is allowed, and can someone come back by right and do that? That's the concern with the administration.
But based on the dimensions, as you mentioned, it'd have to be the minimum lot width. would be
62, you'd have to go to 62
Yeah,
foot.
so anything
wide.
below that, they'd have to come back.
But
and
that would still
ask for a
be a
variance.
third more lots, you know, homes in there for them. You know, again, what they have, you know, their sketch that they have with the I think it's about 89, 92 feet for most of the lots width, it is great, and that's what we'd love to see in there. But again, there's no guarantee that that's what they're gonna put there. You know, somebody can come up after this and offer them, you know, something and sell and go to 62 foot or whatever meets the 5,000 square foot,
Right.
as long as it's 50 foot minimum, you know, and whatever the depth would have to be to create that 5,000, you know, square foot on the lot. That is the only concern we have with this, is that. You know,
So
and again, he did give up his 25, 23 foot
Right.
lots. That was, I don't know, it's about 100 or 2 of them in there. I don't know how
Whole
many.
bunch of 'em.
Yeah.
It was a pile of them. He did give that up to come back with something. And again, we would love to see this development that they have, their sketch right there developed.
You know, it's a good point too. I think you mentioned there, you know, just comparing if it was zoned. So this is R1A would still be single family. If it was changed to R2, then that would be
R2
allowed for
would be
duplexes.
allowed for
Right.
duplexes, and that's one of the reasons, you know, they didn't wanna go R2 and all as well, because then that would create 75-foot lots, and you'd have to get 10,000 square feet or ask for variances, but you would have to ask for that as well, you know, some type of variance maybe or that. But it would allow duplexes on each parcel of property then.
Yeah, I don't wanna see that happen, but,
No.
but they gave up 1,800 square foot lots to extra 5,000 now, which is
Yeah, and that's what
still 3
made,
times bigger than what they had previously and they could have built on.
What they're looking at.
that's what made this
more
recommendation letter so
7,500.
hard, because it's kinda like it needed to just make sure that it was pointed out to you guys that you did have the 50-foot lots that would be allowed by right, so felt the need to make sure that was identified and clearly pointed out. But with it, it's almost that hole in your zoning where there's not a sweet spot for between, you know, it's almost like we don't have enough zoning classifications in order to do what this property needs. So you kind of just have to figure out what's the best fit and go with it.
And based on those dimensions, I don't know if there is a possibility of doing a 50-foot lot based on the depth, because it's going to be
No,
under the requirement
It
for
would have to
5,000 square feet.
I
so
think
they'd have to
somewhere
get a
around
variance.
62
Yeah.
feet is the number.
So really can't get the square footage out of a 50-footer because it's not,
Yeah,
don't have the
You
depth.
don't have the depth.
You don't have
The
the
math doesn't
square
work.
footage at
Yeah.
50 foot.
Exactly, so.
And what size homes are you planning on developing?
We're looking at what, 1,500, 1,200, 1,500 square foot home?
Yeah, so if I could just say a few quick things. I don't have a copy.
And identify yourself for the record, please.
Sorry. Thomas Jenin, Ajax LLC. I lost my phone, and this has been a nightmare. I have to file. But I think the document that y'all have, Compton Engineering did this back when it was 277 lots.
Right.
So, yeah.
I had talked with Heather and the mayor, and we could have collapsed property line, or we could have collapsed lots into, say, 4 lots. I forget
So not
why.
collapse, but you could have just sold off.
We could have,
like
we
3
could have sold
lots or
3 at a
4
time, or
lots
5
Three
at a
and
time, or 8 at a time.
75,
Yeah.
The whole idea was that this would be like a little resort community. On the plan you have, if it says Compton Engineering on it, there's a clubhouse with a swimming pool and some tennis courts, I believe, bocce ball, that kind of thing. My attorney, Robert Schwartz, and his partner, Mark Orgler, we had a meeting about this, and we talked to some other developers. The swimming pool and the clubhouse and the POA, Mississippi law, when, let's say there's 50 lots, and some are double, there's a few people interested in buying bigger lots.
having a bigger house. Long story short, the swimming pool becomes extremely expensive to insure because people can die. And then I don't want to manage a POA or even have a part in a POA. I don't like the POA where I live. And, you know, I'm trying to get away from POAs. So the discussion came with Eric. Eric does financial stuff for us now, Blind Tiger. The plot you have, I think it's 63 lots. Not,
63, yep.
it's in the 60s if I recall. So
65.
we're looking at
Yeah.
like,
65, Thomas.
okay, so if you could just envision that plot at 65, we're gonna be somewhere in the neighborhood of 45. So what's there becomes wider. And there is no common clubhouse with the swimming pool. The bigger lots will allow for the homeowner, if they so choose, to put their own pool. So if you want a small pool, there are people in Bay St. Louis that could put a pool in for you. And there's nothing to manage from a POA other than the architectural guidelines, which this subdivision will have. And in meetings with Jeremy Burke, as it was explained to us, this was the fastest way to do this. And then regardless of what happens, whatever engineering firm produces the final layout, planning and zoning has to then sign off on that, and then we come back here for the final sign off after city utility and city fire, and everybody signs off on that. So we're looking at minimum 1,200 square feet, porches, metal roofs, hardy plank, but smaller houses that aren't Old Town price, $500 a square foot. So, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40, 45. What I think the final plot or the plat would be, and the concern with some people interested in building some houses, they all wanted to make sure there would be some guidelines on what you can and can't build, right? Because the third house that goes in, if it's
Right.
painted purple and gold, drops the price on it just kills the subject,
Just, yeah.
right? Or you get the RV in the driveway with two jet skis and an airboat, and
Yeah.
I sell no more lots.
Yep.
So this will be like a classy little community. Josh, you and I talked about this where, you're close to the grocery store, Walmart, Lowe's, I-10, Bay Marina. And we've taken some golf carts from there. It's about 15 to 17 minutes from there via Washington into town.
Cool.
So I don't think it's a hard sell. We just have to get it
Right.
rolling and then get it built.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
All right, any more questions, discussion? Good discussions. Motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve
Motion,
the
Mr.
zoning change.
No block.
Second.
Second, Mr. Salvo. Any further discussion? Let's vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 7-0. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Mayor, mayor's report.
Last meeting, we talked about, limestone driveways, extending the
Yep.
paved apron out. I sent a, picture. That was pretty much all of permitted homes and driveways since this was adopted in November, sometime in November. Vince thinks he got them all, everything shows, it also shows where, some areas where no hardened surface, pad is there. We got some with pads. There's one on the beach that is real bad. Every time it rains, it washes out into the street. And it also shows some with larger pads and everything of how well it stays in the yard, out of the streets and everything. but again, there's some, I know since the pictures was taken, I think we finished up one of them. He was waiting on contractor to do his work. There's some of them before they get final approval, it's gotta be done and all before that, so.
So when new construction of a home,
Uh-huh.
and there's a dirt driveway, how does the building department follow up to ensure that this is done, or do we? Or it's
Before
on-
that,
it's just-
on their final inspection, it's gotta
Okay.
be done.
So
know.
on their CO or just final inspection, or?
Well, that CO, they'll get that last. And one situation was, he was just stood up on his work and couldn't find anybody to do it and all, and that's why it was a little bit after time with him. But they're all aware of, they've been trying to enforce it. If someone comes in and redoes that drive and all, we don't have an ordinance stating you have to get a permit, whether it's $5 free, whatever and all. So, but to enforce that is what they're trying to do, when people do come in to do that, make them put an apron down.
So if you're gonna pour concrete in your driveway, you have an existing driveway and you dig it up and you pour concrete, you don't have to get a permit?
You do.
Okay,
You-
so I was gonna
But if
say-
you're just coming in and putting rocks
yeah.
on top of
Right,
rocks, you
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have to have a
Nope.
permit.
Yeah, I agree.
So a lot of them, and again, a lot of it is being done, just regular drives and everything, and that's what's happening now.
Yep.
And so it's hard to keep up with it, but, again, when they go back out and do their inspections and all, that's one of the things they do follow up on to make sure it's done.
And they're also making sure that people know it at the onset of
At the time.
construction.
Yeah.
Right.
So y'all have to keep in mind, there were several houses that were kind of in limbo that had already pulled permits, submitted everything, got everything planned before this ordinance was in place. So you have a little bit of that.
And a lot of
going
them
on, too.
okay with it anyway.
Yeah.
No, it makes a better product.
It does.
At the end of the day.
And
It
all.
looks good,
Clean, it's cleaner.
Yeah.
very much so.
So if we adopted other ordinance on November 7th. So when we adopt this one, will all permits between November 7th and now be null and void? That people that built do not have to do this because we're just adopting this permit, or they have to do
No,
the 5 foot?
They could do the 5, but
Okay.
some of them going to 8 anyway.
Yeah,
I think there was a couple did 15.
yeah, I saw some of them pretty big.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
the building department has been, for the last month, recommending the 8 feet, telling people, hey,
Okay.
this ordinance is more than likely changing, this is what we're
Okay.
recommending.
And what it does, it gets you off the property line. If you got a sidewalk,
Right.
if you have a small sidewalk, you'll see some of those paths were, 3 feet.
Right.
Now, and that was done before, we put the 5 feet in place, but it just gives that extra room for the pad and everything. and
Oh,
just
it looks good.
Makes it neat.
Yeah, makes sense, looks good. Thank y'all for the pictures. Some of the pictures were old driveways, but I appreciate those two. Got grass growing up through them. Look at this driveway, we just
Well,
did, it's got damn grass growing up
look.
through it. It ain't new. I know.
I put
We
mine,
good.
I put mine,
I know.
redid mine, and I want the grass to grow.
I want to, yes.
You know.
I got a bunch of red
All
clay
I
in
wanted
mine.
was the hard ground so I wouldn't sink.
Yeah.
And
It's good.
something always been there, clam shells and everything else and all.
All right.
So just
Any
a
more
comment.
discussion on?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I do appreciate the mayor getting us, the majority of those looked like they were paved. There was one that went above and beyond was 20 feet. I think one you had mentioned that's on the beach. Because of the sidewalk proximity, they're seeing a lot of rocks get down there, but they wouldn't have to fall into compliance because that was done before we did the first ordinance of 5 foot apron.
No, but he's having to bring so many rocks in, he's probably
gonna do
willing to
something,
do
huh?
it.
Yeah,
But his ends up across the street on the, walking pad over there.
but what we've determined since we did the 5 foot apron and now recommended the 8 is that there have been instances, whether that be because of the sidewalk proximity, that the 5 feet's just not enough to keep those rocks out of the road
Correct.
essentially.
Correct.
And
All right.
yeah, I wanted to. I think we also need to look at, some of them have bumped their rocks up against our sidewalks. And now a lot of the rocks is winding up on the sidewalks, and when
Correct.
people are walking or riding their bicycles, it's an issue. So we're gonna have to look at that also. I've seen some that have poured a pad from the sidewalk in, which I think is the right thing to do, which it keeps the rocks off of our sidewalks now. And I mean, you can go down Washington Street, first block of Washington, second block of Washington. You can see basically what I'm talking about, that some have poured
Yep.
concrete against our sidewalk, again, which is the right thing to do, to keep the rocks in. Some have used the sidewalk, and now you got rocks all over the sidewalk, and it's creating a safety issue.
We had the same thing where they just coming in on the right of way and putting limestone on the road
Yep.
to create parking in front of their house, and it's the same problem. And that's, and, you know, and that's what brought all this up about the rocks getting in the roads, from a
Right.
safety standpoint and all, and everything, and trying to create that to where it doesn't happen. We thought 5 feet would be enough, but in I wouldn't say all situations, but in some of the situations, it's not. They went out and measured some things, and again, there's a couple contractors that does excellent job on this, and they put theirs even further, which makes it just a nice, neater package, and it doesn't get to the roads and everything. So,
Cool, thank you. All right, any more discussion on this? Need a motion? Motion to approve ordinance 667-07-2024 to amend ordinance number 663-11-2023 requiring driveways to have a minimum of 8 feet of paved concrete driveway apron.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Salvo,
Second.
second, Mr. Reed. Any further discussion? Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion passed 7-0.
thank you. Next one is, interlocal agreement with Waveland, and again, we think,
Want me to take this one?
yeah, with Heather, just amend our ordinance that we have instead of going
Right.
to the Attorney General and all. I think she's sending it out, and you can take it.
You kind of stole my thunder there, Mayor. So basically, I don't, and I've relayed this to Wayland's attorney, and I'm supposed to be hearing back from them, but I think we can do the same thing by just amending our ordinance and allowing reciprocity between the two cities. When you send things to the Attorney General, typically it's because money's exchanging or there's some sort of formal contract or process that you're collaborating together. This is not really the case. Also, when you send something to the Attorney General, the longest you can do is for a term. So if we send something to the Attorney General right now, by the time we got it back, I mean, we're looking at something that's only gonna be valid for 7 months. So I think we could do it by ordinance and just make it cleaner, and then you also ensure that this goes on in the future.
Right, cool. Sounds good. Any
And
discussion?
I have drafted something for you guys, but we just wanna make sure Waveland's on board and we're all good, cause I don't want y'all to
Right.
adopt an ordinance if they're not on the same page.
Alright.
Have they looked at it yet? I don't know.
Well, their ordinance, it wouldn't wouldn't matter. It would just be your ordinance that's just saying you've accepted, you'll accept the city of Waveland's. I
Alright.
remember it's just saying that you'll accept it, but it also says they still have to comply, just to make sure everything else is valid. So, yeah, you have to have a sticker. We'll accept your sticker, but you also have to have your seatbelts and technically everything they should have by Wayland anyway.
Okay, good.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else, Mr. Mayor?
I don't believe, thank you.
And for council business, discuss culvert moratorium. Mr. Lewis, put that on there.
Oh, you want me to take that one?
I think Gary did.
Gary.
Yeah, it was, I think Gary was talking about, the distance in between the catch basins.
Yes, so that would allow that if people are putting multiple culverts down, to make it easy for the city to clean those culverts out.
It's 60 foot right now.
60 foot is somewhat long. I mean, are y'all cleaning them now with 60 foot? I mean, 'cause there's some like on St. Charles that are totally buried.
That's the problem. When homeowners.
You know,
come
so
in
I
and
mean, there's no
they're-
way you can even clean them.
well, you know, you gotta know they're there, be able to know they're there.
Oh, they're there. I mean,
Again, you know, once they get covered, we uncovered one, Bay Oaks a year or so ago, you know, with a problem that was over there, and found out he had a catch basin in the front yard, and it was a foot and a half under dirt, you know, and got it, and since then, the problem's been going for that.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, our hose is probably 100 foot. Gary, look, I've asked this question before, you know, it's 60 foot to right, it's 40 foot. To me, the more you have, you know, the better. We have so many places in the city. Citizen Street's a good example, that 200 block and all that. We have some drainage pipe coming through there, but we don't have inlets. It's coming from down the road, and they expect everything to go in as time builds up. And if you remember, I think one of the neighbors came years ago asking about putting inlets in there and everything. But we have a lot of streets that doesn't have inlets on them, get water into them. You know, it's just flowing water from uphill coming down with no inlets in that part of the blocks or even in that block at all. But, I mean, we can change it if that's what we want to 40 foot,
Jason, what do you think?
you know?
I mean, we've talked about this before. Yeah, you're the engineer.
Give
I mean,
it a
the more
shot.
inlets, the better, but it comes with a cost, and the size of the inlets are important as well. Some of the landscape inlets that people install, the openings are very small, they get plugged up with debris very easily, then they're virtually ineffective. So, I mean, if you wanna put them closer together at a 40-foot spacing, then I think that's something to consider. But I would say that the function of an inlet depends on the size of it. I mean, that's how you get the water in it. You know, so if you wanna look at that, then we also need to be talking about the size of the inlet too, 18-inch diameter minimum or something like that.
And we don't have specific sizing minimums on the inlets as it stands.
I don't think we do. We just have a spacing on it.
Whatever matches that
Yeah.
pipe usually, what, the 15
Well-
inch, 18 inch, that's what they put in.
I mean, so when you engineer, like when someone wants a culvert, you tell them what size it's supposed to be?
No, we don't do that. The city handles that, but if we're doing a drainage study or a drainage project, we look at how much flow's coming, we look at different rain events and different storms, so it's completely different analysis when we're looking at it for some drainage improvement.
So what do you recommend?
I'm not prepared to make a recommendation tonight. I don't know what's gonna come up.
Well,
So,
why don't we put it on the next
put it
agenda?
on the agenda so we can get with the administration
like-
on it.
Yeah,
I think there's a few different.
yeah,
you
I
know,
think it just
Different
needs to be,
scenarios to
with all
consider.
the building going on, it needs to be addressed, so that city, you said it comes at a cost, what cost is, flooding. There's a cost of being able to clean them and maintain them. Right now, if we can't maintain them, what's the point? When I built on 9th Street, we were forced, every 40 feet, you had to put an inlet, so the water would drain. That was when it was on the county.
I think what Jason is saying, I think the bigger those inlets, catch basins, the better. To get down in them, hold more water, but basically to get down in them.
Right.
And
Clean 'em out easier.
and I kind of like the man-made ones or the concrete ones.
Cast and plate.
Yeah, that would take the grate off and get in there. So, any recommendation, I hope that you would consider something like that.
I like those too, but
Yeah.
if the homeowner's installing them, then those
Yeah,
are very expensive.
I
So
think,
that's,
I think we got a price on a couple,
Mhm.
you're looking at over the 5,000 range per box to
For
put on,
one,
for one.
Dang.
I need to do those.
Yeah.
You get out the brick business,
Won't
huh?
pay you in the
No,
wrong
that's in the
business,
brick business.
but the prices we have from, the cheapest one is over $5,000.
What, and is that coming from the manufacturer that built,
Now, that's built in place.
that's built in place?
And what about the
That's-
plastic ones that you can get, like a Southern Pipe?
That's too much.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do what, Gary?
The plastic ones, like at Southern Pipe, those
It
are,
just fits on top of the pipe, with
yeah,
the saddle
like
and
you bring your
everything.
2 pieces of pipe and it joins them, and then you have a grate on top of it.
Those are more than the pipe itself, nowhere near what that cost is for, concrete box.
Yeah, that $5,000 is way out of, is way off.
there's some that are precast that might be, closer in line with some of those Nyloplast inlets.
Yeah,
Part of the problem with the plastic ones, the manufacturer of them are long lead items, so sometimes they can take 3 or 4 months to get in. So that's why a lot of times they go to build one in place just so that they can get it done and move on.
I remember the built-in-place ones. Now, this is way back in the day. We built the ones in Oshner, and we was building for $85 that's just the labor, so, I mean, $5,000, I know it went up that much.
Cool. All right, more
Keep looking at
discussion
it.
again, right, and figure out what we need to do and get wrap this up.
Jason, all I'm looking for is, some direction, what we should be doing. I know we've talked about this over the years before. Nothing's ever been decided. We have tremendous amount of building going on. And when you start covering up, open ditches are great, but when you start covering them, then you lose your capacity to drain.
Cool.
All right,
Sir,
we'll look at it and get a recommendation.
thank you. Mr. Hoffman, council business?
Two things, Mayor. I had a question about the garbage cans down on the beach, close by the boardwalk entrances to the beach, the one at Almond and the one down the road there. I know the county put 2 or 3 more cans on the beach itself, but there's one at each entrance or exit from the beach. And
and those get overrun with trash because
Up top or down low?
down below. And it's probably a county thing. I need to talk with Scotty and see. There should be 2 or 3 at each location, cause they have them now spaced out on the beach every 200 yards.
Right.
But the ones on the beach don't necessarily get used as much as the one right there where people are exiting the beach and going out top again. They
Okay.
throw everything right there in that garbage can. So just maybe a few more cans there so it's
Few
not
cans and empty.
spread out all the time. Yeah, and then emptied, especially when we know we have a busy weekend going on. I mean, 4th of July is a bad example in the fact that it was fireworks, debris, and everything else. But you know, it was just there from Wednesday all the way through Sunday and Monday. The debris just kept piling up.
Okay.
So it just looks really bad. And then the other thing is regarding little waste bags for dogs. Seems like those are always empty as well. So we can just check on those relief stations for the pets and see if we can get some waste bags out there. That would be very helpful.
Okay.
That's all I have tonight.
All right, Mr. Reed,
Nothing.
Mr. Salvo,
Let's see, Miss Curtis, Miss Bird here. I know we was discussing the
Yeah,
Lord,
Heather's
he
gonna
was
touch
came
that
in.
on, under hers.
Yeah, I
Okay,
have that.
okay, all right, we'll
Okay.
discuss it then. All right.
Yep. That's it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lewis.
Oh, no, just a quick follow-up. I know, Mayor, I appreciate Ronnie and the team, Public Works team, they got it to Ramonita. I know there's a drain there that I guess there's a pretty large, I was out of town Sunday, but a large thunder event there, and there was some, looks like there was actually some sewage drainage. They came and got that taken care of, dug some things out. Do we know what the rationale and reason that we're seeing that overflow out that particular drain is?
Lightning with the pump down there on the beach right there.
Okay.
And
And
it
that's,
just cut off, backed up, and by the time they get the alarm and everything, get out there and all to get it reset.
and that's been
different
remedied and reset.
things. You know, hopefully when we, it's about like the sidewalks, if we ever get that project done, hopefully it's gonna relieve some of that.
Okay. I appreciate y'all jumping on that so quickly. So, that's all I have, Councilman Seal.
Mr. Zimmerman, anything?
I'm good.
All right, scrolling through here. Got too many screens open now. All right, yeah, we'll talk, Heather talk about Swift. We got some stuff, discussions there. Public forum. Ms. Bouchon, you've signed up. You want to talk again, or you're good? Okay. Mr. Tad Black, portable building accessory structures. I got that. You right?
Thank you, gentlemen, for allowing me to speak tonight. The topic that I have tonight is portable buildings and accessory structures. 2 weeks ago, at y'all's meeting, at the end of the meeting, y'all were discussing about the ill use of portable buildings and accessory structures in our town. I think the mayor even chimed in on it, that we need to get a handle on it. About 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was going down Nikkei and noticed either 12 by 24 or 16 by 24 portable building that had been delivered on a piece of property on Nikkei Street. The property in question is on the corner of Nikkei and Esterbrook. Okay, so I called my city councilman, Kyle. No, I didn't call Gary too, but Kyle called me back a few minutes later, or whatever, and said he spoke to the mayor, and the mayor said that it was anchored down, so it's okay. Am I correct, Councilman Lewis, on what was said?
Yeah, I mean, I
What
think
you
it
had-
summarizes, I think we were in email correspondence regarding that particular item. Yeah.
So, I went for the forms request to see public record. A couple weeks ago, I filled the form out, and I told them, there is no address on the building. Okay, no address. Side of it, on Esterbrook side, Nikkei side, there's no address. I looked, no, I didn't walk in the yard, but there's no visible address. I think at one time, Jimmy Locana owned that property, and they built a little house that was attached to the cinder block build that's there now. think Mr. Joe LaCanna used to use that for storage, or JE or one of them, but anyway.
Grocery store.
So, anyway, they did move a huge portable building in 4 or 5 weeks ago. I called my councilman, he calls me back, so he spoke with the mayor, and that it's anchored down, which is one of the zoning codes. So I asked to see, well, a couple weeks later, I saw electricians or people installing electrical to the building. So I decided to use the city policy and asked for got a records reform request, filled it out, and explained there's no address on the building. So I just put the corner of Estabrook and Nikkei's. And of course, if you went across the street, it's where it's just concrete, no building, just concrete. If you go on the next corner of Estabrook, it's the St. Rose Priest Home. If you go across the street, it's a vacant lot. So I figured, you know, a little common sense would tell you that that's the one. Well, on the 6th day, because the city has 7 days to show me this information, on the 6th day, I was called by Mr. Burke, and he left a message. I happened to be playing golf that day, but anyway, he left a message on my phone. I got back with him.
Jeremy plays golf?
And he informed me that they can't find the property because I didn't put an address. I said, okay, well, I'll go by. I called him back, left him a message. He didn't answer. And so I did. I went back by the property, looked again. There's no address numbers on any of the property. Except what I did, there's a house across the street that's 404 Estabrook. There's a house behind the property in question that's 407. There's a mailbox next to the 404 across the street from the house in question. No numbers on it. So I'm just gonna assume that we'll make an ass out of me and maybe not y'all. But that it would be 405, right? House behind it's 407, house across the street's 404. You would think it would be 405. So I went back to Jeremy and I said, well, look, let's just write 405 on it. And this is the 6th day. They got one more day to show me the information. Mr. Burke informed me that I'd have to start all over. I said, okay, no problem.
You retired.
So I said, I can play this. So I got another form, I filled it out, but this time I don't want to just see just the electrical permit and the permit that was supposed to be pulled to install the building to make sure the anchorage was. And also, you pull a permit to make sure that you meet all setback requirements, which this one I do not think does. Maybe the tail end of it, but the front of it, it faces Nikkei Street. I would imagine we'd need about a 1.5 to 2 foot variance to being 5 foot off the property line. But there's another variance in question that wasn't asked for either. That's when you cover more than 45% of the property. Now, I would venture to say that right now, before the portable structure was moved in, that the property was already at 85%. So we move a 12 by 24, 16 by 24, whatever it is. Now we've got about 90% of the property covered up. So I would think that you would need a variance for that also, wouldn't you? So today I was called by Mr. Burke at 9 minutes to 5 and said he cannot fill my request because they can't find 405 Estabrook. Now, the thing about it is administration, I showed Jeremy a picture of it from Nikkei's. Here's the structure, here's on the corner. So now I've been told that they can't do anything until I get them an address. Now, if permits were pulled, shouldn't they have the address? I mean, would you think that the building department said, oh, that address is such and such?
Yeah.
So at this time, 13 days later, after the initial request, I'm still being told we can't do anything till we have an address. I just want to bring that to y'all's attention because this doesn't seem right. I mean, if things were done properly and legally, there was been no question about, here it is, Mr. Black. But now I don't only want to see the permits, I want to see the financial statement that it was paid for and how much they paid for. That I have not seen either. Now, I wanted to bring this to the council's attention because we sit here and we talk about this, we talk about that, we talk about the Airbnbs. I know several councilmen brought it up years ago about Airbnbs, and now the comprehensive plan says we got too many, So I do hope y'all do something about it, because my significant other lives on Demontlison Street, and she's got 5 of them surrounding her. And what this lady said about noise and everything else, and you don't know who's coming in and who's going out at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We need to get a handle on that. And I appreciate y'all taking this serious now that it's come to complaints. And a legal document that y'all paid very highly for says you got too many. So I hope y'all get this in check. And I will keep you informed on whether I've been approved to receive the information that I've requested for almost 2 weeks now.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Doug, also on these portable buildings, they gotta meet the wind load requirements. They're supposed to provide engineer drawings.
Yeah.
When I put a shed on my property,
Right.
I had to provide the engineer drawings. I mean, did they provide engineer drawings?
Could we just get an update? I mean, I don't know how y'all been working on this, I guess, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure what's
First,
going
his
on.
first request for, on the corner of Estabrook. Well, there's 4 corners on Estabrook. I don't know what he told him what. Second one's for 405. Ann had no permits for 405. Okay? They do have permits for 403 that Ricky got this evening.
Didn't get the permits, he pulled the permit.
Yeah, well, pull permits, whatever. And on, for Miss Yuki Northington, total cost of the project to move the shed was $10,000, permits based on that. Everything strapped down, inspected and all this and that. Tie down accessory dwelling, this and that, all the information on there. And then there was also that was pulled on 4/11. Site inspections on 4/12. Approved pass, this, that. And then the foundation was also inspected. And I think right here is that for Ms. Yuki Northington again, contractor Mark Fusnine, F-O-U, Fresno, at 403 Estabrook.
So he's the electrician.
Electrical permit pulled, $30, and thing here.
So this building was approved as an accessory structure or just an accessory building?
It's a structure.
Well,
I mean, it's
yeah,
not a
it's
dwelling.
It's a shed, just a shed.
Yeah,
Okay.
and as far as the 40% lot goes, the property behind that house is their property as well, which is a vacant lot sitting back there, and nowhere near is it 80 or 90% occupied before this was brought in.
Well, it's not a
Which-
vacant lot, Mayor, it's a parcel, it's a
Well,
yard.
it's a partial, but that's included
Well,
in it.
that's different, it's not a separate,
Right.
like, tax parcel, it's not
No,
another piece of
it's
property,
all
it's all
together.
one parcel of land.
And so they're nowhere near that, a shed that's, fits on that, setbacks are met and everything, so.
Well, to avoid any ambiguous situations and being brought before us tonight, can, after the second attempt, instead of sending Mr. Black out for a goose hunt on what the address is, after the second attempt, when he spoke with Mr. Burke, that there was some concerns on what the address actually is, could we
I
not
don't know
give him
what
that
that
address?
conversation was.
But in the future, so, Mr. Black, are you satisfied with the request, or do you need that address? Do you now have the address if you wanna pursue your? But it does seem like it's common sense and common courtesy to give, hey, it might be ambiguous, here's the address. we
So,
need to put
so
this
when,
on there.
when Jeremy sent it to Ann and was asked for 405, there's no permits for 405. She has no idea what he's talking
Well,
about.
I think that was the second attempt,
So-
as Mr. Black just mentioned,
It
that he had to
was.
go find it, because it is a corner of what Nikkei's, but again, there's not a visible address, so if there's permits, or, again, permits, assuming everything's been pulled, say, hey, here's that address, you just have to get the paperwork correct, because right now, we're having to send Mr. Black out. Now you have it correct, Mr. Black, you've got the address.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Estabrook.
All right, Miss Kathleen Monju, 15th Street. You'd like to discuss anything with city council? Okay, come forward, please, identify yourself for the record. Yes, ma'am, your name?
Kathleen Montague.
Yes, ma'am. What would you like to address the council for?
Let's see, private businesses being operated by rental people who rent houses that don't pay any taxes or don't belong to any, small business associations or anything like that. Explain that to me. How they can run two businesses in a rental.
A house. It's a rental house.
Around, yeah, it's double. Two different people live in each side of it. I have to put up with swimming pools covered with mud and dust and dirt, and various people showing up walking through the area, because it's supposed to be, one is a landscape business, and the other is a carpenter business. So he's got a little black trailer like everybody in this town has, and he moves it back and forth, but he does all his work at night and in the evening with all this, and I'm old, okay? And I don't like all of that. When I was young, I didn't care what you did, all right? Now I'm like, who are these people that don't have responsibility like I have to have, how to conduct myself, how am I supposed to live? Fortune on landscaping and trying to keep everything straight and nice. And they just come along and throw all their tree trunks, all their limbs, wherever they work at, behind my house. 2 months ago, I had about 10 pounds of crawfish thrown in my backyard. Nobody does nothing. Call the police, they call on me. Said I lunged at him. Do I look like I can lunge at anybody? For Christ's sake, look at me. I tried to file a complaint, got nowhere. So I need to know what's gonna happen here, because there's only, on my little block there's only this double in our house. I don't even know what their addresses are. They're all messed up, like this man was talking about addresses. Yeah. And then the landlord, we put up cameras because we don't know, stuff's missing, I'm tired of this. So he puts a whole wall up on the side of each house, side of the house, so the cameras can't see him coming down the stairs, going under the house, going into my house. I mean, I'm stuck here in a quandary. And then they put stones all over the sewer pipe, the pipe that's in the ditch. So we were in the middle, and we get all the flooding. And then they started digging up the back of the yard, so they could pull their trees up and put their stuff back there. I don't know what's going on, but I'm like dizzy. You know, I need to know what, when I spoke, I think I spoke to the mayor once. They said it depends on if somebody can have a business in the neighborhood, if it's residential. Depends on what.
Well, so,
Traffic or
yeah,
drugs.
no.
Me, a guy in the corner went to jail twice. He's out there in the backyard shooting his gun off. Somebody stop me here.
Yes, ma'am. No, we have a home occupation guidelines definition. The code enforcement needs to go out there. Part of that definition is where there is no indoor, outdoor storage of materials, equipment, and or supplies other than necessary for domestic purpose. So if they run a business, they got equipment, they got trailers, they got stuff stored there. That is not a home occupation business. If it's normal trailer, if people have a car trailer, a boat trailer, whatever, but if it's part of the business, then it's part of the home occupation is not allowed. Administration you need to get the administration the address of the buildings and have them go out and do a survey and find out what's going on. But home occupation is defined specifically in our ordinance about what can and cannot be done. And what you're talking about is, to me, is outside the limits of what can be done.
I could see it even if they own the property, they would share in something
Yeah, but
with the city and with the community.
Yes, ma'am.
But it's not like that. They've got weird people coming different hours of
Right.
day and night. And sometimes you smell funny things cooking. I mean, what can I say?
Yes, ma'am. They have to get the administration, they get code enforcement out there and they do a survey of the site and see if they comply with the home occupation business. We do have rules.
Ms. Kathleen, we'll send tomorrow code enforcement.
I'm sending Vince an email right now.
Huh?
I'm sending an email to Vince right
Vince?
now.
Josh, is it 4099 15th Street?
No, it's 3222. It's gonna be Avenue B, corner and 15th Street.
Your house is 3222.
Yeah, it's gonna be the one right next
John
door.
Griffin, that's the name.
The long duplex, duplex looking house, okay,
Yeah, 3216.
They're on the side of Avenue B.
32.
Yes.
The double is Avenue B. We're on 15th in the middle.
Josh, you sent an email to Ben?
Got that?
I'm doing it right now.
Perfect. CC me on it if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. They're working on it now.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I salute you.
John Griffin? With you good? Mr. Cliff Ravelay, school tax increase, VRBOs, P and Z. And I don't know what that last word is.
I don't know, I wrote it down. Cliff Rabelais, 702 3rd Street. I'm gonna read my notes so we can get through this, cause Reverend Reed will kick me off for 3 minutes, I know. School board in the paper has has requested an increase in the ad valorem tax. Right now, their ad valorem tax is $10,580,571 for the citizens of Waveland, Bay St. Louis. They're wanting the ad valorem tax to go to $11,914,303. That's a 12.6% increase.
$1.33 million.
On a decreasing student thing. One of the biggest complaints we hear, you gentlemen, I hear it, we need affordable housing. The 12.6 increase in ad valorem tax ain't helping affordable housing. I'm coming to you gentlemen because last year I went to the school board. That was a waste of my time. They do not feel accountable, the school board does not feel accountable to the citizens. I don't know if they feel accountable to you gentlemen. But I would ask, since maybe they'll respond to you, I'd like to know, how many students did we have last year? How many are we gonna have next year? How much did we get from the city of Waveland? How much did we get from the city of Bay St. Louis? Or, well, in the county. I mean, guys, the Bay St. Louis, Waveland school tax is more than what we pay in ad valorem to the city.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm gonna ask you gentlemen to look into that, cause I'll probably come back and ask, what did y'all find out? Because they won't tell me a thing. Last year I went there, and the big discussion was whether the band should play at halftime or at the end. That was the budget meeting last year. All right, second item, Doug, go ahead, if you need to talk, Kyle.
Well, that's Mr., you know, we're talking about, I think, the city's, the max we can go up is 10% on millage at a time. But the school, does the school have the same?
4%.
They can do
4.5, isn't it?
4 per year without
I thought it was
approval.
4.
Yeah, but that's gonna be 4 on their total budget, not on our ad valorem.
Yeah, I think they got, by law, they got. well, they can
And
do
their
4%
reasoning
per year.
is because that's what we can ask for, not that we need it, not that we're doing this. The reasoning given last year, why they're asking for 4%, is because that's what we're allowed to ask for.
That's the answer I got last time I asked.
So you understand my frustration, Mr. Salvo. And by the way, thank you for your assistance this morning, sir.
I did talk to, Mike Bell the other day, and he said that the state didn't approve all of their funding for their needs. So that was one of the reasons why they had to increase it. You know, I didn't go into,
They cut them 800,000, I think they cut the county, what was the county?
So the formula changed this year, the way the Mississippi Legislature funds education, it changed. That benefited a lot of school districts. Unfortunately, it did not benefit, I think it hurt actually both of the ones in Hancock County. I cannot go into details on the formula because I don't know them.
Right now, Hancock County is not asking for an ad valorem tax increase.
Well, I'm not arguing with you about that because I don't know.
They asked
But-
for $1.8 million.
But what I do know, Mr. Cliff, is that so if they're making it up, they're making it up somewhere. But Hancock County School District was hurt by the new formula, as was the Bay Waveland School District.
And
What they're asking for, I don't know, but it is a fact that both of those school
I've got the paper,
districts
I'll show it to you.
cut funding. Well, I've got enough
All
of my
right.
own problems.
There you go.
I can let Hancock keep
I
Hancock.
understand, Ms. Heather, thank you. All right, Chancery Court vacates plats. Guys, you guys know this is the tip of the iceberg. This is just the start of it. Zoning on any piece of property was established based on what was there. You go to Chancery Court and get what's there vacated, guess what happens to zoning? It ought to be vacated because now what was there isn't there anymore, and you gentlemen, or the city, should reassess what does it need to be. The future of Bay St. Louis, what it's gonna look like in 20 years is gonna depend on what we did tonight. And I can tell you, none of y'all came to P&Z, but I stood up and said, it's R1, they bought it to R1, I'll stay R1. But I knew they were gonna give it R1A, because you know why? Because you guys have consistently, what is the primary use in that area? Right. That area is primarily R1A. Right. But I made that point because you guys have consistently gone with what's the primary use in that area. Just like Josh, I don't think you were on council then when we got the new ordinance, and we had to make up a new zoning for R1A because we didn't have 100-foot lots out there. Yeah. So we're going forward. This gentleman even talked about, and he's not here now, you were going to a resort community. Was out there at Harley. What we need to do going forward is, yeah, we need to make it look good. We need not to do the minimum. We didn't do the minimum at the Bayou LaCroix boat launch ramp. We didn't do the minimum at the water park. We did more than a water sprinkler out there. We did something nice. Bayou LaCroix, we did something nice. We've done more than the minimum. And 20 years from now, the future of Bay St. Louis is going to look like what we require. I've talked to at least one or two of you out in the area that's coming with SWK. There are areas where they got underground utilities, they got wider streets, you know, all that. We need to have the future of Bay St. Louis look like what it ought to look like, not what they met the minimum. If you have to, come up with a new zoning code. All right, next two vacated subdivisions, we're gonna create a whole lot more interest than what you had here tonight. And I would ask that you do what you've done in the past and be consistent with requiring what's predominant area. I can tell you right now, in the primary area around SWK, most of us own multiple acres. I own 2 acres. Gene across the street owns about 6. Craig owns about 12. Louis Mamas owns 5. And then there's Ramonita. That's the exception, and it's got bigger lots than the 100-foot by 100-foot that we require. All right. The RBOs.
Before we move on,
yes, yes.
No, Mr. Cliff, this way. So I thought that brought up an interesting point there, and not to fact check, but is that when you vacate, when it goes through that process, does it vacate the zoning of that land as well?
No. No, it vacates the subdivision. It does not vacate the zoning. The zoning is what the zoning is. And the zoning is a map. It does not vacate. You know, for example, this one gets a little convoluted because that was actually not an R1. It was a special use subdivision, and I'd have to go back to look at the timing as to when that was passed to see that it's probably expired. So then you'd have to go back and look at further zoning maps, which it probably would have reverted back to R1 is what I would think off the top of my head, not having looked into this at all. But no, and then like a typical, when you vacate a subdivision, that is, you're dealing with a plat. You're not dealing with the zoning. The zoning is a completely separate animal.
Okay, but the zoning does belong to the city. If they feel that it's been a significant change, then I think that they should be able to look at that and evaluate it, and if need be, correct the zoning to what it should be.
I mean, there are proper procedures you can take for looking at updating zoning. Didn't y'all just hire somebody to look at the whole city's zoning? Orion's been hired by the city to do a complete overhaul and study of the entire zoning in the city of Bay St. Louis.
And I think there are a couple qualifications if the zoning is changed, if the conditions have changed, or it was zoned incorrectly to begin with amongst the two of them. So
well, we need to look at that because, gentlemen, this is where we're going to be. What Bay St. Louis is going to look like after I'm gone. What's it going to look like when you guys still be here, maybe? But 20 years from now, what's it going to look like? It's going to depend on what we do here within the next year or two. All right, let's see where we're going with VRBOs. What it took me 3 years to figure out, our industry in this town is tourism. You might not like VRBOs, but if you're in Gulfport where the industry is shipping, do you think they would restrict how many ships they can bring in and ship out? would they cut their own throat? I'm gonna just warn you guys, I don't own a VRBO anymore. Because believe it or not, it's not a cash cow. I can go through a whole lot of tax returns and explain to you where the advantage of is, but be careful when you start bleeding this golden goose. There's a lot of these short-term rentals that are second homes, and that's how the people afford them. And usually, more often than not, when you get, oh, we got all these extra cars and extra peoples, it's not being rented. It's the relatives and friends that show up, because if you're renting it, you're not gonna let it get overfilled like that. You're not gonna have it like that. So, when you show up and the officer shows up and says, well, that's my cousin's. This is not a rental. You know, we have a unique situation here that people buy second homes here because they used to come here during the summer. So, whatever you do with this ordinance, you know, understand that you're gonna show up and it's gonna happen. Well, that's my friends and relatives. That's just not rented. What do you got? We can't tell your neighbors, Mr. Bro. I know Mr. Bro. They show up, they got 9 kids with wives, husbands, and grandchildren. And they're good. They're good. But I'm telling you, culverts. I didn't spend
Can I comment on that real quick? To that
Yes, please
effect?
do.
To that effect, Mayor, are we able to extrapolate what the calls are? If we do get a call, the police dispatch, and see if that is a true BRBO. I know we don't have that ability because they're not permitted through us, but is there a way for us to differentiate if it's a?
You maybe go online and find it being, you know, advertised on there and
But
everything.
we wouldn't have
Simply
the data.
no.
We don't have
Yeah,
that.
we don't have the
data.
data that says we've had 10 calls this month at
No.
BRBO.
But they
Okay.
do try to keep track if there's calls continuously from the same place.
Multiple calls from the same location.
Yeah, you can run an address report through dispatch to see how many calls has been
Yeah.
on any location at any given time.
Culverts. And there's one on Bay Oaks culverts are usually somebody extending their front yard into the city's right of way. That's what they're doing. They're extending their front yard. It's not really their property. I told Jason, and he'll probably repeat it, depends on how far apart is gonna depend on how long a hose you got to clean it, because you can only be, if it's a 10-foot hose, you can only be 20 feet apart. But the other thing that happens when culverts, because he's right, Jason is absolutely correct, the drainage are inadequate, and you end up having water standing in the yard and on the street. And Josh and Ward 6, it's a problem. The street stays wet, and then all of a sudden we got asphalt problems. We got concrete problems because the ground stays wet. Who was it said I like open ditches? Particularly, the closer you get to the beach, the more you need open ditches, because all these guys are doing. So if it costs them $5,000 for every catch basin and they're extending their front yard, how bad do you want to extend your front yard? All right, the last thing, and I'm going to leave y'all alone. ADA access to the Broadwalk. I thought that was on the agenda somewhere. Maybe I missed it. Some of y'all know my wife has to use a walker. She had her cousins come in. There is no handicap access to the boardwalk. The curb's there. There's no handicap access anywhere along there. And there's only one handicap parking spot, and it's in front of Dan Beach. I guarantee you we use federal funds.
Boardwalk, what boardwalk?
Well, right out
He's talking
there.
about the concrete.
The scour pad?
I think what he's referring to on the agenda
sidewalk.
is the FY 25 grant application, so I'm guessing he's
Well,
I think you're trying to support the grant application.
Yes.
It's on the consent agenda as item number 17.
Okay, but regardless, the reason it got brought up, my wife saw it, that she went with her cousin and she can't get, somebody has to physically pick up her little walker. We need to look and make these places ADA. Let's face it, guys, who moves here? We're not having young families with kids move here for jobs. We're not. We're having retirees and second homes. And retirees are us old white-haired folks. And, we don't get around quite as good as we used to. Yeah, disabled. That's me too. And one thing, a shout out to the chief I don't know what was going on Third Street at 4:15 this afternoon, but you had 3 officers out there, so whatever they were doing, thank you. Yeah, I don't. Good evening,
Thanks,
gentlemen.
sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cliff.
Thank you, Mr. Cliff.
All right, that's all the public forum, Mr. Jason.
Okay, good evening. We have a couple items to discuss tonight, and hopefully get approval for. The first one is an MCWI MOU between the council and the mayor. This is,
You want me to explain that?
can you even?
I was trying to figure it out, like, what
So,
the
so what
heck?
this is checking a federal box because federal guidelines need money committed. And so basically this is I don't want to call it a loophole, but that's essentially what it is, that DEQ has found that is just buying us time to, meet the actual real deadline, that's December. So it's just having their box so that they can check and say, hey, we have a contract, because it doesn't necessarily go into what the definition of the contract is. So all this does is just approve it so that we can keep moving forward and get our funds committed and get our ARPA money spent legally. Does that
right.
help, Jason?
What she said.
What she said, I know I read it and I'm like, we've never, yeah, it's just, I figured it was
Yeah, so
federal
August,
guideline stuff.
so and the reason for that is DEQ had put in place that, I think it's August 31st, that the entities had to obligate that money. So basically this is obligating the money, but the federal obligation date is not till December of 24.
Okay.
So it just buys us a few months.
Couple months.
Yep.
All right, so we need a motion to approve the MCWI MOU agreement between the council and the mayor for the ARPA funded projects.
Yeah, and this isn't anything any of us drafted. This came down from
Yes.
from them, from
Yeah.
DEQ.
Like a bunch of lawyers drafted.
So what I'm telling you is don't edit it, because it's not gonna change.
Like a bunch of lawyers edited it.
That is
All right,
exactly
need a
what
motion,
happened.
Mr. Hoffman,
Second.
second, Mr. Noblock, any discussion? Vote to motion.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. The next item is for discussion. I believe it is on the consent agenda, but we do have another grant deadline for GCRF. It's due July 26th, which is next Friday, so you have a resolution that we need approved to submit. It's an online application, so we fill it out and upload this documentation. This is gonna be for the boardwalk downtown that Mr. Cliff was just talking about.
Yeah,
If you
number
recall,
17.
2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, we received 1.4 million. Working on some match coordination right now for that phase. I guess that would cover phase 2, and this is for phase 3.
So we can submit the application, but does that mean we have to commit to the funds? It's another $1.5 million with $300,000 match.
So the resolution calls out that the match funds are there, but a lot of that can change depending on the amount of money that's actually provided and what that final grant amount's gonna be.
So we don't have.
We
the
won't
match-
know until we get a grant
Yeah,
agreement.
we don't have the match money today.
Right.
Jason, what's phase 1 and 2?
Phase 1 was the pedestrian ramp at Almond Avenue that actually goes down to the beach.
We did that already, correct?
That's been covered.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
Yeah, that was a private, so that can be used
Yes.
as your match.
Right.
And so what this does is so the money that the legislature gives out every year, you have to have a application in, and then it goes to a process to be selected. So if you don't have an application in, you cannot get that money. So what this does is get your application, and then basically when it gets to January, February, March, April, May, it really becomes your decision as a board of whether or not you really want to go say, hey, I want to bring
it's
that
even
money home.
funded.
Okay.
So, yeah, so you still have to lobby the legislatures to get that money. They're not just going to. So what I'm trying to say is if you don't put this application in, you're not getting anything.
Okay.
If you put this in, you can still revisit this after the first of the year and say, hey, is this something that we want to push our delegation to bring this money home, or do we need to push this to next year? But if you don't get this in, you won't be able to do that.
Right, okay, yeah, because, we still have other projects that, funding is required, and, this is a nice city, it's nice to do. But other projects are as nice to do as well. So we need to really look at that. I know we've talked about, Ward 6 streets, right, roads. Do we stay our course now, or do we go do an improved project to something that lasts, which is gonna cost us $500,000 more dollars? Well, $600,000 in boardwalk money right now that could be put into roads in Ward 6 instead of a new boardwalk, And I know we got Tideland money and we got money, but it's just, again, I've said this before, my concern is we have so many projects that we're doing today. And we have a spreadsheet here that we have not funded some of these projects because we don't know where they're gonna come from. You know, we got $12 million in sewer we gotta fund as well. So they're niceties and keep moving forward. But at some point, we gotta decide what, are roads more important than the boardwalk? And it's just, again, if we can do it all, we're doing, I think, everybody's doing good. But we gotta be cognizant that we're running out of reserve funding to continue to do projects. As long as we can say, hey, we'll push it off, then that's fine. I don't mind, moving forward with it.
Now, you said that on phase 1, we can use the cost of that down to use as match funds?
For phase 2 though, right?
So
Right.
we've
2 and 3.
yeah, so Jason will have to speak to the phases more, but we've broken this project up with the idea of hopefully be able to pull funds from a bunch of different pockets. And then the idea would ultimately be to be able to take some of these different pockets that we're utilizing and potentially use them as matches for other projects. So some of this as we go and as we progress and money comes in here and money comes in there, that we have to sit together as a team and say, okay, what can we use this for? Let's call MDA and see what we can. Then you can, you can take, say, with, for example, like if you end up getting restore money for this project, I don't know if you will, but if you did, you're leveraging the money that you already had. Hey, look, this is what we've already been able to pull for this project. Like, this is a real project.
Right.
Y'all should give us more money because we're not one of these other entities out there that's just dreaming. Like, this is a reality.
Right.
Here's our stuff. So it's just all a process that you're pulling and you're begging and you're collaborating.
Yeah, just,
We
as
can
long as we're, again,
Can
we
use
have.
what we've already done as a match.
Yes, and so that's where I was going with this. So that's what with the phases is we're trying to make sure to do this in the right way to utilize all of your match, because we want to be able to use that full $200,000 that from your private donation. You want to be able to take that and link it to the next phase to be able to have that as your match and then keep going. But in order to do that, it has to be linked together.
Okay, so our phase 2 match was, I don't know where I'm getting 380,000, but that's not right. What was our phase 2 match? Was it $1 million project?
The grant that we've been awarded is 1.4 million
Okay, so
for
basically
phase 2.
280,000 then.
Right.
Yeah.
Would be our match. So we got $200,000 from in-kind, what we did already.
It's more than that. It's about 390
Okay,
for that
for
phase
There you
1
go.
ramp.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. I thought that, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I wasn't, okay.
And we're trying to, like, right now, we're trying to see how far we can get from that Almond ramp to the downtown area, so that would be connected to the phase 1 and use that as a match for phase 2.
Right.
And phase 3 would pick up the rest, however
Yeah,
far we can
gotta
get.
fund that.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and I know, again, they're niceties and they're great to have, but I think at some point we gotta look at, we still got, like I see, 4 projects here that we don't have funds for. ADA improvement, City Park, Julia Street, depot parking, community hall, parking and drainage improvements, and downtown striping.
You have depot parking, we have funds. That's gonna be from that,
We didn't,
from the
yeah.
grant we have.
from SSC lot. That was the SSC lot. That was the other that was part of
We can use
it.
that grant we have to cover the
part of that.
depot row and the parking out front and across the street at
Okay.
Stanislaus as well.
I still had that on the not funded, but I'll update my list.
What
on
was
that.
the other one?
Julia Street Park, 250,000 in ADA for park improvements, 150,000 for community hall blaze drainage improvements and parking,
That's not being,
and
we're gonna pave
75.
out front, but we're not moving the sidewalks and all that.
Yeah, that just the last project list, Mr. Rizzo sent out these projects on there, and this is the numbers that are there. And downtown striping improvements for 75,000. All these projects were on hold according to our last meeting we had.
And some of this, I'll just take the opportunity to reiterate something that I think each of you already know. Sometimes your limitations are dealing with sources of funds that are available. Like, for example, Julia Street Park. I can't think off the top of my head unless we found some sort of like weird federal park grant,
Yeah.
but there's not money floating around in the state to just go put bathrooms at Julia Street Park.
Yep.
I can't link Julia Street Park to tourism. There's no drainage. There's no infrastructure. So some of this is also GCRF funds aren't going to be around forever. So some of this is also when you're prioritizing and when you're looking at needs and you're looking at wants, is also looking at what money's out there right now
What you can do.
that 4 or 5 years from now is not going to be there, because that's a one-time grab. You get that money while you can, because it's not going to be there in the
Right.
future. So I think that also needs to be considered. And used to explain when people ask, well, why did you do this project over this project?
Right.
Well, because
Right.
this
funding.
match was here,
Funding was there.
and we could do it, the funding's there, it will not be here 5 years from now.
Right, that makes sense. But again, my friend has called me Mr. Thrifty. Want to make sure we got the money to do what we're supposed to be doing. And that's just one of my, I keep bringing it up, because at some point, we're gonna get to the point like, oh, shit, we got too many projects going, we don't have enough money. And I'm like, on July 16th, we discussed this, right? So let's just continue to be cognizant of that. Do you want to do that in the consent agenda, or want to take that out?
I would just do it consent
agenda.
agenda.
Do it, yeah.
Okay.
Wait.
All right, cool.
So the other item I wanted to mention tonight, we do have a Department of Health public meeting tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. This is for the, it's for the DEQ SR, it's for the Department of Health loan/grant that we're submitting for an elevated tank and water line improvement. So it's a formality as part of that loan application to submit. Again, the intention is to get as much forgivable loan money that we can get to basically grant money through this program. Same thing that's funding the water well right now. It's the same process, we're just resubmitting for some water line improvement. We had to have a public hearing set tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. And if you have any other questions on any other project, I'll be happy to address them.
That's it. Anybody got any questions?
I do. So how's that Sienna Lane project going?
The notice to proceed is August 5th. They'll start on that. They had a site visit today with the Public Works folks to look at some access points, so they're gonna be out there on August 5th.
And what's the scope of it? They just gonna clean the trees out and?
Basically debris removal, cleaning the trees, reshaping some of the ditches, and then there's some culvert repair and some roadside ditch regrading along Sienna Lane, Doningo, by some of those businesses in that area.
And how far down does it go?
It goes just about all the way to Watch Bayou.
Okay.
Now, the city is going through and near Bailey's and that section and clean out a whole section of that ditch, so we might be able to pull that portion out of it. It's supposed to go all the way to Watch Bayou.
All right, thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
one more,
sorry.
Jason, on the Romney Street sewer improvements, I know that was DEQ getting comments and approval to go out before going out for advertising construction bids.
Yeah.
Any update on that?
We had a conference call today with them. I wasn't on it. Some other folks sat in on it, or actually yesterday. We do have some comments from them that we can address. We've really been focused on some of these ARPA deadlines, because we don't have a deadline on the Ramonita job, but there's some contractual deadlines on the ARPA project, so trying to get those out the door. The comments were very minor from DEQ, so we probably could move that one up on a list and
You
get
want
that ready to
You want the
advertise.
pictures from Sunday? Would that help speed it up?
Yeah, I mean, that's the first I've heard about that issue, so
Okay.
if you wanna shoot them to me, we'll take a look at them.
Will do.
The harbor projects, where are we at on getting those done? I know we made a loan to do some of these projects, and we're gonna be paying interest on them, and what are we at on those projects? Is that part of the elevation, and we're trying to get money?
Mitigation and everything, waiting on permits for dredging.
Yeah, permitting is holding up the dredging. That was out for public comment from EPA, which should have expired by now, so we should be getting some movement on that. The other harbor improvements, mitigation on the south wall, that ramp, some repair out at the Rutherford Pier, that's all in FEMA's hands, waiting on the cost adjustment with it.
Okay. All right.
We haven't heard much about that project in a while.
I know we made a loan on that, and we're,
Well, what's happened is your costs have come in significantly higher
Right.
than what was expected. And so we're waiting to get some direction, and MEMA is also waiting to get some direction from FEMA, because what you run at risk now is basically you could put this thing out for bid, but you have no guarantee other than basically them saying, oh yeah, you should be fine as long as you run, and Jason, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, but you know, what they tell you is, oh, as long as you're following your specifications and your
Scope of work.
your scope of work,
Right.
but they're not putting that in writing, they're not committing to it, and the main thing is they're not adjusting project worksheets.
okay.
So they're not adjusting that amount. So if you go out right now for a bid that you have 1.5 on, and it's a 3.2 million, $3.6 million bid, which is a real life scenario that you have. So yeah, you did do a loan, but now you don't have enough money, and you also
Right.
can't go back and up that loan because you have no documentation showing that FEMA has committed. And the FEMA worksheets are what gives you the authority to go out and get these loans and spend money.
Okay.
So it's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg
Right.
situation. We're just
Waiting.
hoping FEMA can give us some direction, and I know MEMA's been hammering FEMA pretty hard saying, hey, we need to help these people. And you'll see, you can read the paper, it's not just us. This is happening coast-wide right now. Everyone is in the same predicament where construction costs have
Okay.
just
Yeah, I thought we talked about that. I just slept since then, so,
Wait.
thank you. All right. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Next
one other
item,
thing.
sir.
Buyer Street.
Buyer in Washington have been approved by MDOT. We're waiting on them to give us authorization to execute the contract and issue the notice to proceed to the contract. So all
This
the
year?
documentation has been sent to MDOT and they're reviewing it.
Just waiting for that final to go.
They have 2 commission meetings a month and everything's gotta go to Jackson to get approved, so that's what we're waiting on right now.
Yep.
All righty,
Sure.
thank you.
Next item, number 11, we've already completed that, correct? As the MOU for
Correct.
CWI.
Yes, sir.
All right. City clerk's report.
Motion to approve docket of claims 24-037 dated July 16, 2024, in the amount of $616,514.63. I had not received any questions.
That was good for me. Any questions? Any motion? Motion, Mr. Hoffman.
Second.
Second, Mr. Salvo. Any discussion? Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 7-0. Consent agenda, items 13 through 25. Any discussions on these?
You're gonna have to pull one.
Full.
I'm gonna have to recuse myself, so it is the carpet thing. The bay.
Car, okay.
Number 15.
All right, remove item number 15 from the
Vote on
consent,
it separately.
consent agenda.
And I apologize, Gary, I should have thought about that.
Yes, no worries.
All right. So we're moving item number 15 from consent agenda to be voted on separately. All right, need a motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Hoffman.
Second.
Second, Mr. Salvo. Any discussions? Vote to motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
Mr. Reed.
I'm saying nay because I don't have, some of the reports on there, so I don't know what,
Oh,
like I don't have the payroll report.
oh, they're all, okay.
I don't have the certification letter for
Yep.
my report.
Gotta get you one of them computators.
Do you
All right.
want to vote no, Mr. Jeffrey, or do you just want to abstain? That's your call, I just want to throw it out there.
Well, I don't have them, so, nay.
Motion passes 6-1. Mr. Reed abstains or votes no, whatever. Need a motion to approve consent agenda item number 15. Mr. Noblock has left the room.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Hoffman.
Second.
Second, Mr. DeSalvo. Any discussion? Vote to motion.
Only
Aye.
discussion.
Oh,
I was just gonna finish out most of the downstairs.
It's gonna finish up everything down there,
Okay.
and then the painting, not sure what's gonna be done first.
It
Painting.
looks a lot better on the other side where they done it.
Yeah, it's
so.
gonna finish it all up
Okay,
by
good.
the end of the project.
All right, thank you. That's it.
all right. Vote to motion.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 6-0. Mr. Noblock has excused himself. Yes, sir? Yes. Quickly. Not protocol, but since it's you, Mr. Bill.
There was an item on the consent agenda, I'm sorry, Bill Adam. There was an item on the consent agenda tonight that had to do with Bull Street, which I wanted to make a couple comments. The property had to be subdivided, and we went through P and Z and council meeting. The process that we went through for this was pretty detailed. It was a pretty simple split. And my point to these comments are that it was a pretty simple piece of property, evenly split, and we had a developer who wanted to purchase this property, and he ran into a roadblock with the procedure. So my point is that maybe this ordinance needs to be looked at on smaller parcels to be tweaked a little bit. Now, he ran into a roadblock, and he left town. And he was gonna spend about $2 million on 2 spec houses. He took it to Pass Christian. They're built. So the point is, I said, we may need, the council of the city may need to look at this, I think it reads anything larger than an acre, I believe. And this was an acre and a half. So, the requirements were quite strict. Topo maps. The first two engineering firms that I hired to look at this, would not touch it. One out of Picayune, one local, I won't mention. Finally had to go to Biloxi to get this done. What is it, July, and this process started back, I think it was October of 23. So my point is that, you know, we don't want to lose potential revenue for the city because, you know, the two very nice houses would have been built and the developer took his business elsewhere. So, just something to think about. And I wanted to make that comment, and I appreciate you letting me say that because it's, we're finally getting to the end of the tunnel here. So I'm gonna take it, Mike, we can sign this off, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're gonna go look for another developer.
Good.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Alrighty, where are we at? Rolling on here. Need to spread, motion to spread the payroll, cash balances, detailed grant revenue, grant interlocal government revenue, gaming sales, and harbor report. Motion to spread that on the minutes.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Hoffman.
Second.
Second, Mr. Salvo, and more discussions. Vote to motion.
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain from this one.
Aye, motion passes 6-0. Mr. Reed abstains. Mr. Attorney reports.
Yeah. Gonna briefly talk about the SWIFT RFPs for the grant administrator that they were due Friday? Was it Friday?
Friday.
Thursday?
Thursday.
Thursday. And they were opened and interviews were set up on Friday for Monday. Mayor Favre and Mike Rizzo and myself sat in close to 6 hours worth of interviews on Monday. But it was a really good process. It was a very educational process. Some great firms quite frankly, of the 6 of them, I think 5 of the 6 are perfectly capable, and I don't think there would be a bad choice. However, there were some questions that I wouldn't say they were raised. They confirmed some of our questions that we've had, including how can Louisiana do this so much more easy than the state of Mississippi? I will tell you, it's not just Mississippi that has this rigorous process at all. But what we were able to do is figure out the exact process that Louisiana was using through multiple different people and bring that to MEMA and say, hey, can we run this up the chain one more time to make sure there's not a way to do this simplified process? You know, because we as a city would much prefer to do the simplified process where the city is basically just sending a building department out there to make sure that all the building permits and, you know, that just normal processes are being followed. So we have sent that on for questions to hopefully be answered, hopefully relatively pretty fast. Let's see, where was I going with that? Oh, so 2 things. So we don't have a recommendation for y'all tonight because quite frankly, who the city of Bay St. Louis needs to work with is going to depend on what process we have to use. Because some of these firms are using the process that the state of Mississippi currently seems to require, but they're not local. So when I say not local, I mean like you need to get on an airplane and go see them, and that's fine. I mean, I think they're completely capable of doing it, but we just want to make sure the process. And so we've reached out to MEMA, we've talked to MEMA, we're waiting on some answers there. So then hopefully when we get an answer, we can make an actual recommendation as to who would be the most qualified to help the city of Bay St. Louis. Do you have another? Also, please keep in mind too, that we have not yet, we sent off for a cost estimate or cost adjustment for the FEMA grants. I do need to ask the homeowners to get updated quotes from their contractors. So if y'all could get that, I greatly appreciate that. Sooner the better. And then, so yeah, it's more of just a stay tuned. But do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just one comment that Louisiana in particular compared to like Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was a lot more like our setup. At least what we're reading and MEMA's reading is the rules. In Louisiana, and they've done thousands of these since Katrina. That process,
Under a different grant.
it's under FMA.
Yeah, flood mitigation assistance.
But they're using, it's basically, they're still similar. In that situation, the homeowner has the contract with the contractor directly. The city is not party to the contract, which removes liability from the city. In Pennsylvania, it's just the opposite. The city has the contract with the contractor, and the homeowner cannot speak to that contractor. I mean, there's strict rules. But at that point, the city may be exposed to some liability. And then also, in Pennsylvania compared to New Jersey, they actually let them apply for advanced funds compared to not advanced funds. So there's some of those language that, you know, we've talked to MEMA about to say, can you look at this? So trying to move that up the chain. But again, I think 5 of the 6, like Heather said, were completely qualified, have done thousands of these. 1 had no experience in this arena.
And so just keep in mind, you know, moving forward, there's nothing new that came out of these agreements or these meetings that we had or these interviews. It was just more of a confirmation of process and being able to have that confirmation to bring back to FEMA and say, why can't we do, because since the beginning, that's what we've said, how do we pass this on? How do we be that pass-through entity? So that's what we're just trying to verify. And if we can't, we can't, but.
FEMA districts too.
Yes, because we are, keep that in mind, and we've talked about this before, we are in a different FEMA region. So regions, for some reason, they do things, each region does things differently, which blows my mind because we're all following the same federal requirements, but I guess interpretations can be a little different.
Okay. Questions, Mr. Salvo?
Talked, so MEMA's gonna send it back up through FEMA for the responses?
Yes.
Okay. And just keep me posted so
Yeah.
we can, you know.
Because keep in mind, we have in writing right now that we legally cannot do the way that the state of Louisiana does it.
Right. Well, we can move forward with the grant administrator today.
I don't think the funding's been approved.
Well, the funding's not, has not been approved because we need costs, we were just asked for cost estimate, but more importantly is I would not feel comfortable recommending to you a grant administrator when I don't know what process this is, because what administrator I think ultimately will be recommended will all deal with what process we
In this.
what contractor has experience with the process that we as the state of Mississippi has to use.
And if the simplified process would be approved, then it would take out the state procurement laws and they could be easier. to
There's
get their
still
own
procurement
contractor.
laws, but they're more relaxed.
Okay.
Takes out the,
So in Louisiana, they allow the homeowner to go get 3 quotes on their own and bring back either the low or best quote. So they don't have to use the lowest, but you've got to justify it.
yeah. Which we've known that. I mean, this is not new information. Again, this is,
It's a sealed bid, just like we would open up any other bid.
and I tried to get these firms to, you know, give me, okay, what is your legal authority? How are you doing this? And I mean, there wasn't one. There wasn't a specific like, oh, go look at statute, whatever. That was not there. So
they cannot, the firms we interviewed today, except one, cannot administer the SWIFT grant today in the state of Mississippi, as it is written.
I'm not following your question.
Like we're saying, none of these grant administrators can administer the grant in the state of Mississippi today as it is written.
One of them probably.
Or what I'm saying.
Well, no, I don't agree with that statement at all.
So
It's,
They had experience that's close to what we have.
yes, I mean,
Okay.
I think they were all capable of coming in and
5 out of 6 can do the work.
and can do it, but some of them would have to come in and completely change their process, rewrite their process, come up with a whole different process. And I would prefer, and I think these ladies sitting out here would probably prefer not to have to do that if we have somebody that can already do it. But again, I don't want to go with the person that can already do that if there is a way that we can have this simplified process that the city does nothing more than basically our general building inspector jobs.
Right.
I would not want to put that on the liability, you know, I wouldn't want to put that on the city if we don't have to. I mean, as I've stated multiple times, I think they're all capable of doing it. It was more of, why do y'all have to do that?
Yeah, because they said so, right?
That's what I've been asking for 2
Why is
years.
Mississippi special?
Yeah.
Right.
And they clearly said, especially in Louisiana, all of the jurisdictions do not want to be party to that contract
Yeah.
because of liability. And that's how Louisiana was set up.
Yes, as we've said for 2 years, we are in a different
And they have different
6, I
The Region
believe.
6. Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
And they
frustrating.
don't even follow their own guidelines from region to region.
No.
So
Okay.
they don't follow the same guidelines from region to region, which
Yeah,
is
that's
crazy.
what's crazy.
Yeah.
When it's the federal.
Their guideline.
Yep. So do we have a timeline of what we can,
I mean, I feel like we as a city have put this out and streamlined it as fast as we possibly can. I mean, we opened proposals on Thursdays and started
Right.
interviews 9 o'clock yesterday morning. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know what else we could
There's
do
literally-
there, but.
The only thing we did yesterday was sit through these meetings.
oh my God.
And
yeah,
again,
that's-
I don't,
Hour- every
I mean,
hour
until
now.
we get these
Yeah.
cost estimates, which, as I said, we've
Okay.
just received this request, so, I mean, you're not in limbo because I'm not going to tell you to go start
Right.
paying a grant administrator $100 an hour, $150 an hour, if you don't know if the grant's going to pay for it.
Right.
So,
Yes, I agree. And so we requested a grant, some, change of a grant, right, to pay for administration
Mhm.
fees a while back,
mhm.
or whenever. We're still waiting.
Well,
to
no, we've heard that, that's what I'm talking about. I need the cost, remember the cost
Okay.
estimates that I need it.
Okay.
Both. I mean, that ultimately comes from FEMA. MEMA submits it to FEMA, and FEMA has asked us to get updated cost estimates to back our supporting documentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, keep pushing the rope.
Yep, thank you.
That's all we can do.
Yeah.
We've been
I
trying.
would also just comment that all the companies that do this regularly said there are multiple firms that lift houses and do this across Louisiana.
Yeah,
So there's a bunch of them that are good.
good, good.
Yep.
We should be able to get multiple bids.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, which apparently is not uncommon at all.
Slabs are not a problem, they said.
Yeah.
Yep, that's easier. I asked
Thank you.
Caitlin to print out, or, Mr. Russo to print out, I did a spreadsheet and scored all these 6, vendors. Got comments as well. Got 2 vendors that are tied, actually, on their score sheets. So I guess administration will do a score sheet and we'll compile the score to see who's, has the best score, and then I guess we negotiate or ask. Only one firm met our 5% management fee. The rest of them were
No,
hourly.
that's not, so
Or-
that's not actually accurate. So
Okay.
I believe the firm that you're talking about said they would charge 5%.
Yeah, and I
The
didn't
grant
say some
only
management.
allows 5% to be paid, so which most of that's
Right.
the amount that can be paid. So the other ones just gave you hourly rates, and it would be, the contract would say ultimately up to that amount.
Up to that
And
amount.
I hate that you were not able to participate in
I know.
those interviews because I don't think you could really get a fair understanding of what this process entails without being in those
Yep.
interviews.
No, and I told Mr. Russo that, I said I did have one firm, and I told him in an email, I wasn't sure how the interviews went, but this is, from reading all their documentation, and as we're supposed to do and grade them, as Mr. Russo put this score sheet together, we're supposed to score them and rate them, and that's what I did. And I told him I didn't know how the phone interviews was, but these 2 are, neck and neck, and he said, yeah, this one, we didn't have a good warm fuzzy, and I'm like, well, that's fine. Yeah.
Closest New Orleans region. No, they would come in. That's why, I mean,
No,
ideally.
no, no,
ideally
no, they
getting-
were not here, they were all via Zoom.
Oh,
Both, both.
cool.
They will be
That's
here
why-
when we need them.
In an ideal world, that New Orleans, Baton Rouge region is an hour to 2 hours away, they could be here. And
Basically
they
on
do
demand.
inspections there, I mean, that was part of the discussion, is
Yeah.
when they have to do, it's kinda like building a house, you have draws on your bank.
Okay.
Well, they come for each one of those draws. You know, and everybody signs off. So it's ideal to have somebody close. However, they may not, those may not be the ones following the same rules we have to follow. You know, so we may need like a Pennsylvania. But she said
It's
she
quite-
would fly in.
Well, quite frankly, the whole reason of getting a grant administrator is to help us with the muddy water. So I don't want to muddy the water even further by bringing somebody in that is totally accustomed to doing something a completely separate way than the state of Mississippi is going to require, because I already know what the state of Mississippi is going to require. I don't need help. I need help getting us across the finish line and helping with what Mississippi is going to require.
Right.
So that is the question in limbo.
Cool. All right, good
Thank you.
discussions, thank y'all.
Yes, thank you.
Let's get the, updated cost proposals for the city,
Yes.
and, we'll continue to talk about it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
That's,
I don't think anybody can answer that question
ma'am.
at this time. I mean, I'm gonna stay on MEMA, and MEMA's trying to get, because I think all of us want to move in the right direction. But, I mean, quite frankly, I don't see, I mean, I'm hoping that we have an answer to be able to award something on the next 2 weeks, but, I mean, if we don't, then I'm not, so, and if FEMA does not get a award letter back saying that they've upped the grant, then, because I mean, and that's completely their call. If they want to go out on a limb and commit their funds and their money before they get the approval, that's on them. If they want to do that, that's fine, but.
cool.
Thank you.
Good deal. Any more discussion on that?
Not on that.
Executive session, we need anything, executive session?
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
I don't need anything.
All right,
Just a resignation letter from Mr. Weber. Do we need to do anything with it, or y'all just?
I think, did we not spread that at the last meeting?
I don't think so, 'cause he just gave it to me tonight.
Oh, then do you want to do a motion to spread that on the
Okay.
agenda?
A motion to spread the, resignation letter from Mr. Harold Weber dated July 16th, 2024.
I would say we do it at the
Salvo.
next meeting, but it just seems since we did the proclamation,
Yes.
put it all in one meeting.
I motion Mr. Salvo,
Second.
second, Mr. Noblock, any discussions, vote to motion?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
No.
Aye, aye.
Aye.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion.
Hey, we
All
approved the
for-
minutes, correct?
Second.
Yeah, we approved the minutes, begin the meeting. Second, Mr. Lewis, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.